announcements from my end before we dive into questions and other topics that you may have to cover. So just to remind everyone, we have two different ways that you can engage with our team. We have the weekly office hours at this time from 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we have this open to the public. And so all these will be recorded and published out onto YouTube. And so we have that mechanism to be able to engage and ask questions with us. We also have dedicated office hours for those in the APAC time region, and that occurs on the second Wednesday of every month from 4 to 5 p.m. Pacific time as well. And so from that, if you do have questions outside of the office hours instances, we recommend that you use GitHub discussions and go in and post in there for us to triage your questions. We go through and do daily triages for it as well. I know I've seen some questions in Discord. We look at Discord occasionally, but we really leave that for customer to customer interactions and to be able to learn from each other. And so with Discord, that really is for community, a space for individuals to come and collaborate with each other. And for GitHub discussions, we're really focused on issues. We can easily be able to create issues and move those over into our backlog as well. And so just wanted to give everyone a brief reminder on that. And then we've had a fair number of doc updates as well. If you haven't had a chance to take a look, we recommend you dive in. We've rearranged the concepts. We've been adding more. We recently have added in our Java samples as well as you look through. And so we'd recommend you take a look at the documentation or updates if you haven't already. And then I'm going to paste a link to the blog. There's a fair number of new blogs that we have published out. We have a customer case study from SimCorp, which dives through how they've been implementing AI, how it's been helping them, and advice they give to others. We also have an announcement around Java that's now at 1.2.0, and there's a big announcement from the Java team as well. There is support for Azure.ai, .openai, and OpenAI V2. All of that is coming. And so we have some upcoming announcements, and there are some changes that you'll need to make as well. And so we've documented that out on the blog. And then we also have our summer and fall roadmap as well. That's all for me. Matthew, anything you want to highlight in particular around the roadmap?
Yes, but I guess both the roadmap and the support for the OpenAI V2 SDKs. I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago that the Azure OpenAI SDK was basically doing an overhaul and moving to their V2 version. Naturally, we take a very strong dependency on that. And so the team's been working on trying to figure out how do we minimize disruption as much as humanly possible. We've communicated out, hey, you use Semantic Kernel, it's V1 because it doesn't have breaking changes. When one of your pillars that you stand on completely shifts, there's going to be some small changes, right? But I'm really, really proud of the team for minimizing the disruptions and the changes required as much as possible. And what I am also pleased with is because we provide a bunch of abstractions in Semantic Kernel for things like an iChat completion service, and this is the function call, this is a function result, and this is what a text content is. It really is minimal. If you take a look at that blog, there's like one change that we expect everyone to take, which is just pointing to a new package, new connector library. But other than that, you should be more or less good unless you are really breaking glass down into the actual connector, and obviously that's going to be a little bit different because the OpenAI SDK is different. So if you have any questions about that and any concerns, please, please, please let us know. We want to make this upgrade as painless as possible. We blogged about it yesterday, 2 days ago, and our plan is to have a preview version of Semantic Kernel that has these changes so that you can start seeing what the work looks like. And then in a couple weeks' time, we'll merge it back into our main release. So if there's any questions on that, now's the time to ask. Okay, great. And then in terms of roadmap, if you go into that blog post, there's a very short 5-minute video of me kind of highlighting what's coming. We have 4 key categories. One, we want to keep making enterprise functionality better. In particular, what we've seen customers do is they have a bunch of telemetry now, they have control with filters, but they don't necessarily know what to do with it, especially when it comes to performance and reliability, kind of pieces that don't get as much love from the AI specialists in the industry. And so what we want to do is either provide tooling or at the very least guidance of when you start getting all of this rich telemetry back, how do you actually use it to optimize and make more performant your AI agents? So that's enterprise. We obviously want better support for small language models and local models. So once we wrap up this OpenAI V2 work, we're going to get to connector to Azure Model as a Service for .NET. It already exists in Python, which is great. Third is, oh my goodness, what is third? I know what the last one is. What's the third one? I'm going to click on my blog and we'll find out. Oh, memory connectors. So we actually just had a bug bash on our new memory connectors on Friday. So those will be released very, very soon so that folks can try it out. And then we have a search interface that's also coming. And then lastly, automation with agents. There's a couple different efforts in Microsoft of how to get multiple agents to like collaborate with each other in an automated fashion. So what we're doing in Semantic Kernel is we're both kind of participating in those conversations, seeing how we can help support them, and kind of uniquely satisfying the needs that we're hearing from all of you. What we're hearing from customers is the thing that you actually want multiple agents to work together to collaborate on are business processes. And so what we want to provide in Semantic Kernel is a really much more opinionated route of, okay, how do you define a business process and how do you actually get a single agent or multiple agents to participate in that business process? And then you'll likely use other frameworks and features built on top of Semantic Kernel from the rest of Microsoft for some of those more generic problems. So that's kind of the updates from our blogs. And yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to come off of mute or leave a comment in the chat.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. We'd love to hear from you if you do have any questions or feedback. Rigoberto, if you want to go and come off of mute.
Yes, can you hear me?
We
We can.
can, yep.
All right, just a quick question. So for someone who's trying to build expertise in semantic kernel, where would you say AutoGen should fit in that mission? Like, how should a person who's trying to build expertise in semantic kernel think about AutoGen and how they can use that?
Yeah. Sophia, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, happy to. So how we really feel AutoGen fits into this equation is they're within our research organization, and so a lot of the work that they're doing is testing, being able to validate with multi-agent, but it's not production ready. And so a lot of the work that the AutoGen team does, though pieces of it will eventually be incorporated into Semantic Kernel, we don't see it as a project that's ready for you to be able to use and put into production environments. And so as we are able to then incorporate the best and greatest, you'll be able to see that in Semantic Kernel, be able to be at that 1.0 and production ready. But we see it really as the two of them are working together, being able to share feedback, but in that way of what we want developers to be using and putting in production environment really is standalone in Semantic Kernel.
So it's not something that in your semantic kernel code you would reference. It's something. It's a separate project that semantic kernel will learn from.
Absolutely.
And the
That makes sense.
great news
Thank you.
is our kind of implementation of the AutoGen patterns is fairly mature-ish at this point. So I just linked to all of our getting started samples for our agent framework, which will evolve into kind of the process automation thing I described. So if you want to check that out, it's a little bit more generic than what AutoGen has to support even more types of scenarios. Yeah, give it a whirl and give us feedback. I do think within the AutoGen library there is like a semantic kernel agent, if I remember correctly, so you can consume a semantic kernel thing in AutoGen. but we don't have kind of the reverse path to Sophia's point. We try to provide enterprise guidance, and we don't want to mislead people in saying, oh, you can integrate Autogen into semantic kernel, because in most production environments, that's something that you wouldn't want to necessarily do.
Any other questions folks may have?
I guess I'll flip it around. Rigoberto, were there particular parts of Autogen that you're interested in seeing? Have you played around with it yet?
I
Yeah,
haven't. I haven't. I'm using semantic kernel a bit at work. We use it very conservatively, but then on my own, I'm just learning how to use semantic kernel, and I'm really taking my time and looking through the learning materials and trying to keep tunnel vision, right, so that I learn what I'm working on in depth before I move on. And just recently, I saw AutoGen pop up in my research, and there's now books coming out on the topic. And when I looked it up and I saw that it's a Microsoft project, I was just like, all right. Even though I'm taking my time as I learn as I become aware of new concepts, I'm kind of placing them on the map. So I was just asking about that so that I could kind of put that in a spot in terms of keeping it on my radar and how soon I should start trying to use it. But it looks like maybe not yet. Again, I'm taking my time and trying to just become the semantic kernel expert on my team.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I would say is if any of you on this call have like a ton of extra time and you just want to learn different processes of using multiple agents together, trying out Autogen is a good kind of deep dive into what's possible and frankly what's not possible with these things. And then as you kind of develop that expertise, you'll start seeing it pop up in places like semantic kernel.
So, a quick question. So, in the getting started with agents link that you shared, are a lot of the packages related to using agents in semantic kernel beyond experimental, or are they still most of them experimental?
So they're experimental right now. Sophia might be able to link to our GitHub issues list for agents. Basically, once that's all wrapped up, we're hoping by Ignite we'll be really close to making it non-experimental, and we should be good to go. But we are basically looking for feedback from first-party teams and folks like yourselves before we put a final stamp of approval on these things.
And then we'll also have a blog out shortly around agents and some of that. Once it's out of experimental, be updating documentation as well. But there's a good number of items at the end of the blog that we detail of when they're coming out of non-experimental, what's still to come as well. I just want to make sure I saw a question chat around multi-agent before we go to the hands raised. Jordan, does that answer your question around the multi-agent patterns in Python? Just want to make sure there isn't any other follow-ups for Evan or for team.
No, I was just wondering when it was going to come out so we could start using it.
Evan is actively working on it. And as he said, there's a few PRs. Evan, do you mind dropping links to maybe the PR?
Yep, I'll get it right now.
Perfect. And then we'll go over to our couple of hands raised and come back to the question chat. Omkar, do you want to go and come off of mute?
Yes. Hi, team. So I had a question regarding so just a simple request that we send. So a chat completion request that we send, but it's just a single request. And what I'm trying to figure out is for that request. Okay, so let me think about that. Okay, so I have a prompt function which defines a prompt, right? And basically, when that prompt function gets called, I assume it's basically just one chat completion request sent with the prompt inside of it added to the chat history. But one of the things that we noticed in some use cases, there are some pieces of prompt. If we add them to the system prompt, the response that we get back is a lot better than sending those pieces just as part of the user prompt. But a prompt, as of today, I don't think prompt function provides capability to specify system prompt and user prompt. I think everything that you specify gets sent as a system prompt, user prompt, right? So is there any workaround for that? Do we have any plans to do that?
Yeah, it is supported today. Let me pull up a sample. I'll drop it in the chat. At least I thought there was a sample.
Yeah, that would be super helpful because yeah, just adding the text to system prompt seems like has improved like some of the responses like pretty significantly for us.
Okay. Okay, I found one. Okay, I want to drop it in the chat. I'll go ahead and also share my screen. So we have these little XML tags. So if you have your template, if you wrap your text in a message tag, you can say which role it belongs to.
Right.
So here we're saying, hey, this is a system message. And then down here, you can have like a user message or another system message.
Awesome. Okay, this is perfect. Yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
Great. Jose, do you want to go and come off of mute?
Sure. Hi, Tim. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Matthew. Hope you're all right. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the agent's question from Rigoberto. So I posted a couple of links in there. So I've been like digging a bit in AutoGen, quite a bit, I would say. And these two courses are really fantastic. So there's one from Chi Wang, I probably don't pronounce it properly, and then King Yung Fu. That probably my Chinese is really bad, but you have to do these two courses, at least the AutoGen one. And if you want to look at another way of doing agents from QAI, which I think it's quite interesting because they have the concept of tasks, which have a kind of a definition of done, so it can implement autocritic also, and everything is like wrapped in a very simple way. So I would really recommend that. And also one of the team members of the AutoGen implemented that in .NET. So all the code examples in the course, in that repo I share at the end, they are also done in .NET. So I think it's really awesome resources if you want to get into that. So
And
I really
okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
And if you kind of want to a sneak peek of where we're headed, what we're finding is to Luis's point on, I'm sorry, Jose's point on definition of done and tasks. We're finding that's a much more effective way of having an agent do some work, know that it's done, and then pass it off to another human, another agent, or maybe another business process. And so those are the patterns that we are going to be starting to bring into Semantic Kernel. So that course with Crew AI, that's the one with the task and definition done, right, Jose? Great. I
Yes.
highly recommend that. It's not a Microsoft project, but in my personal opinion, is probably a better pattern than even what AutoGen created.
I would say it's easier, but you don't have the concept of subchats or things. So it works for a very simple task, right? Or very simple set of tasks. As soon as you have a heavy set of tasks, I don't think that's going to work that well, right? So I don't see scalability on the really highly complex task, to be honest.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah, give them a shot.
Perfect. Thanks for the feedback, Jose, and sharing those links. I see in chat there's a really good question from Imran. Would you mind coming off mute? We'd love to dive into your question a bit more.
Hi, Sophia. Thank you for your time and your effort. Yeah, we are working very on the semantic kernel to deliver our customer very specific agents for specific goals. For example, the finance delivery or something like that. One of our issues is we want to we are integrate our project with the intro ID, and we want to build our customers based on the token usage or this session they are starting. I know that in the Azure, we are using Azure OpenAI, and I know that for each deployment there is a metrics, and you can see the metrics for token usage, the prompting, and the compilation, but not for every user. I found a page under our GitHub repository, regarding to the telemetry, but I couldn't figure out how could we assign a text to the kernel, which we could analyze and dividing the bills or the tokens counters. I tried a lot of solutions, but I didn't be success, and it's really interesting for us to have a statistics on our users.
So this is outside of my expertise. Do we have folks on the call that might know how to use our existing telemetry to create counters? So we have Ben on the call.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how you use it to create counters. Like what's the telemetry system that you're using?
We are using the .NET and the C# with the ASP.NET Core, and we have a dependency injection that's for every session that we start. We inject the kernel based off the configuration of the user, and and at the moment we are using the Azure OpenAI configuration.
Yeah, okay. So I mean we have hotel telemetry that we send up, right? So I mean you can configure it anyway to be sent up. And so from that, you should be able to get token counts and things like that. You can tie the token counts to requests and from like different services and things like that. I'm not sure like if you want to sort of build like at the user level, you'll have to figure out a way where you can tie that to the user. I think that would sort of be outside of the scope for us, but we do definitely have metrics and things like that you can get for token counts.
I wonder too if you can, because you can do custom hooks into the telemetry, like let's say, from ours into app insights. If you could tag, put an extra hook in there for, the user ID or GUID or something. I wonder then if you could do a dashboard on the back end and then look at per user tokens.
I'm
Yeah,
curious if this might be a gap. Ben, do we have a way of customizing the out-of-the-box hotel telemetry that we send? Or that's kind of locked down today, isn't it?
yeah, I don't think that there is a good way to like to enrich things that we're sending out with your own data at this point. I can take a look. We do have pretty good documentation on what we have now. I can find a link for that, paste it in. That I think walks through like creating dashboards and stuff like that. So that could be useful.
Just to interrupt you, I think that would be fantastic because OpenTelemetry is the way to go. That's something I was missing a bit on the previous demo using Azure Aspire, which was brilliant build. Yeah, if you could provide an example dashboard, I think now Microsoft is on the trend of switching to Grafana, which is pretty cool. That would be really, really awesome. So that's something that a lot of people would do and would really highlight Semantic Kernel as a business-ready SDK.
Yes,
Yeah,
and we're working with our friends in Aspire to create some of those out-of-the-box reports as well. So Imran, if you don't mind, I think this may be a gap on our side. If you don't mind creating an issue on us, either A, we need to provide a way of adding additional metadata to our existing hotel telemetry, or to Evan's point, we need to provide hooks at the right spot for you to log your own telemetry. The latter might be possible if you had a custom HTTP client. That might be more challenging than it's worth. So if you create an issue, we can do some investigations on our side to see the best way of supporting your needs.
Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks for the question. I'm not seeing other questions in chat, but we'd love to hear from you if you want to go and come off mute with other questions or discussions that you have for us.
I have one. It's mostly a proposal. I mean, you know, I love to be committed and create content when it involves me learning something. I'm in contact with Grafana. So if I've been talking about Grafana and K6 performance tool a bit. So if you have some kind of dashboard, I can get that battle-proof and maybe can write an article or even a video if you would like that. So I'm super happy to jump ahead and work on that. So just saying. On the other side, yep.
Oh no, that'd be great. Specifically, you're saying if we had a few more reports or out-of-the-box dashboards for these telemetry pieces, is that right? Okay.
That is correct. Yes, that would be
Perfect.
amazing to have a point where to start, right?
Great. Thanks for the feedback. Rachel, do you want to go and come off of mute? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I was looking at the blog post on the improved memory connectors that are coming up, and I'm a little, so I was wondering what exactly will be different here. And if you could expand on the example of a store that needs to save information about products. So, yeah, I was just wondering if you could explain that a little bit more and what will be changed.
Yeah, so we have Wesley on the call. He's the kind of architect building out our new memory connectors. So Wesley, I mentioned in the blog post that for the first time, you'll be able to define a model or a class for something like a product, and be able to save and retrieve data from vector DBs with that type. Would you be able to kind of expand on that?
Yeah, so we intend to allow you to define your own model or a separate definition object that lists every property that's going to be part of that data model and indicate whether it's a key or a vector property or just a regular kind of metadata property. And as part of that as well, you know, we will have the ability to automatically serialize that to the different data stores. So, you know, you provide your you know, an instance of your model, your data model when you upsert, and it'll just translate that into the storage systems representation. And when you retrieve, it'll do the same thing in reverse again.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And we did that in response to, like, the biggest feedback on our old memory connectors is we basically forced you into a particular schema and it wasn't very scalable. And so this basically lets you bring in any custom schema that you want in a type safe way, which we believe is frankly a better approach than many of the other abstractions that are available for memory out in the wild right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for the question, Rachel. See in chat, Jose, you have one in particular for an ADR in regards to the main changes on memory or memory connectors. Wesley, you're able to kind of dive into potential ADRs that are out right now?
Looks like Dimitro beat us.
Yeah, he did.
But
So yeah, Jose,
the
take a look at those, see if there's any questions that you have, but thanks to Mitro for linking those. Perfect.
and I think I mentioned at the top, we've already done some bug bashes on the feature branch. So if you want to start playing around with it as well, that's your place to do it. I think there was one other question in the chat. Oh, I think I already answered it. Jeffrey asked, are there any local OTel trace viewers that work with Semantic Kernel? Because we're using the new OpenTelemetry semantic conventions for AI, the dream is, because there'll be new conventions on how to log all this stuff, any reporting software that also honors that will be able to provide these trace views. And so we're working with Aspire since we're friends with them in the .NET land, but you should expect to see any of your telemetry products start to provide the same level of view and tracing for these AI scenarios. Yay, conventions and standardizations.
Great. Other questions folks may have?
Sophia, I just went through a bit, and I cannot find any mention to Graph Rack, which seems to be working quite well for implementing Rack. So I was wondering if you have that in mind, or you're considering adding that to the work stream, because it seems to be kind of working really, really well.
Right now, that is a separate repository. I'll let the team kind of dive into further if it's on the roadmap. I'm looking through the items by buckets, but right now, we do see that as a separate standalone repository.
Yeah, we currently don't have any plans on integrating GraphRag today. If and when we do, I would expect this just to be a plugin of some sort. So as the team, as Wesley and Mark wrap up our memory connectors and our search interfaces, our plan is once we have a search interface, we'll create, of course, interfaces for all of your vector DBs. We also want to provide search implementations for things like Bing and Google. GraphRag to me is just going to be another search client that you should be able to connect to with our search interface. So it's a bit premature until we finish our search abstractions, but it should be fairly easy to create a connection to a GraphRag implementation once those are available.
Great. I'm not seeing any other questions in chat. Other questions people may have. Are there any interesting projects that folks are working on that they're able to share out what they're working on or how they're using Semantic Kernel? We'd love to hear that as well if there aren't any other questions.
Since there were so many questions around memory and our agent stuff, maybe next office hours we can do a special deep dive into one of those topics. I guess I wonder how we could do this. Maybe we can actually, since memory's coming first, maybe we do that first, and then we can follow up with agents.
Perfect. I saw a thumbs up from Wesley, so we'll get it figured out for our next Wednesday slot to dive into further.
Alrighty. Well,
Perfect.
thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate the time today. We'll post the recording out on YouTube if you want to refer back to it, and look forward to seeing you at future office hours. Thanks everyone.
Cheers. Bye.